The strip lighting hummed overhead and burned through my eyelids. Its glow splintered on the pale tiles, highlighting the scuffed floor in the hospital corridor. I leaned on the wall, my jaw tight as my sister paced. She wore her scolding face, the one that made her words sting more than they should have. Around us, nurses drifted past, their voices sharp, but nothing cut through the frigid air like hers. "I'm not doing this again, Sam," Ava hissed, nearly tripping on the hem of her faux leather boots. She jabbed a finger at my chest. "You just need to stop chasing this delusion, this architect thing. Dad needs you. This family needs you, not your silly little sketches." I drew a shaky breath. My mother's cough seeped through the closed door behind me. For a moment I looked down at her hands, those hands that taught me shapes out of cookie dough, wrote her name with flour on the kitchen counter, the hands now brittle and white against rough hospital sheets. I pressed my palms together, the knuckles aching. "Just listen," I said, struggling to keep my voice from breaking. "You know I'm good at this. You saw what I did to that old wooden shed in the backyard. I have a vision." Ava's laugh bounced with disbelief. "You gave it a new coat of paint, it's still crooked." "It doesn't matter," I said, feeling heat crawl up my neck. "There's more than this," I gestured at the hospital window hazed by smog, "more than just waiting for another shift at the bodega." "Dreams don't pay rent in Brooklyn," she shot back. "Mom's sicker every year, who's going to help her?" She swallowed. "Dad needs you at the shop or is fixing bathrooms beneath you now." Her words struck like open-handed slaps. I thought about the books I kept under my bed, pages dog-eared with hope, blueprints I sketched at night, lines smudged by anxious fingers. If I said it out loud, actual dream, working in soaring glass towers, walking rooftops that cut the sky, she'd laugh, and the world would bury me deeper in the pile of grocery bills, overdue notices, and sticky counters. Behind me, the hospital door opened, my father slid out, grey cast under the fluorescent glare. His face carried exhaustion like a shadow. He looked at me, then at Ava, and his eyes narrowed at my backpack, a battered thing with drafting pencils peeking out. "You're still dragging that with you," he muttered. "Sam, stop with the nonsense, we need you." It felt like the floor tilted. I heard myself say, "I'm not giving up," though my voice sounded so small I thought maybe only the tile heard it. I turned away, the argument pressing against my back like bricks. I pressed my cheek to the cold tile wall, feeling the rage swirl with something like shame. For a few seconds, I imagined stepping into the street, walking until my city's skyline filled my vision and erased all these doubts. One day, I thought, one day, I'll show them real walls, not the ones closing in here. I scraped my way through college on scholarships, surviving on peanut butter sandwiches and sleepless nights, my only luxury a desk lamp that spilled light on a battered drafting board. The city was a pulse under my window, sirens arcing, taxis blaring, music leaking from somewhere above. My classmates had sharper accents and cleaner jeans. They laughed about legacy admissions. I worked part-time cleaning office floors after midnight. I rarely visited home. When I did, Dad would ask if I got that architect business out of my head yet, and Ava would critique my tired clothes, offering resigned sighs. At family dinners, a cousin or two would snicker. "Sam's going to be on the cover of Vogue, designing crooked sheds." My uncle would tip his beer, half smiling. "What happens when there's no demand for castles in the clouds?" I learned to nod, smile, grind my teeth at night. My professors saw something though. Once Professor Martinez wrote on my crumpled semester project, "You build worlds the way you breathe, Sam, don't suffocate." He called me into his office, a den of blueprints and empty coffee cups. He eyed my raw palms. "What's wrong, Sam?" "Nothing," I lied. He waited, gentle but unyielding. "They think I'm wasting my time." He nodded, then handed me a battered copy of Delirious New York. This city was built by people the world thought were fools. Be foolish a little longer. After that, I worked harder. My grades grew steadier. I won a grant, then twisted internships out of the hands of students whose fathers had wings named for them. Nights pressed against me. Cheap caffeine, cold pizza, the hum of my tiny fridge. Every setback felt colossal. "You're not creative enough. You think too much in straight lines." I learned to see what lived between the grid. Alleyways thick with pigeons, corroded gutters, the hidden angles where the city's true shape struck out. When things got tight, I scrubbed toilets in the buildings I dreamed of designing. I'd stare up the stairwell after my shift, shoes sticky with bleach. "One day I'll touch every floor," I whispered, silencing the echoes of home that called me ridiculous. The first real break came with a fluke. There was a city competition, an open call for ideas to redesign a crumbling block in Brooklyn, a park starved for breath, watched over by brownstones with peeling paint. I closed my eyes and remembered Mom's stories, her laughter echoing in the shade of trees now gone. I poured memory into sketches, open canopies, curving benches, color that would not be outshone by stone. I submitted, not daring to hope. For weeks, nothing but silence. Then the email came, "You're a finalist, present to the board." I nearly deleted it, convinced it was a mistake. Professor Martinez pressed me. "You worked for this. Go." The panel was a slab of faces behind metal-rimmed glasses. I stood alone, palms sweating, notes fluttering. I told them about home, about streets that needed to breathe, about belonging. My voice shook, but I held back tears. They awarded me third place. There was no money, but there was a line in a city newsletter, my blonde bleached name in print, and a single design chosen for a mock-up. I sent a copy to Dad, no reply. I spent years chasing that feeling, the validation, the fragile belief. I hopped between design firms, each job barely better than the last, drafting endless hotel bathrooms, drawing kitchens for towers I'd never see. My bosses always said, "Good, but push further, Sam," so I pushed until my pencil snapped in two. Eventually, persistence paid off. I landed an interview with Eamon Mark, a maverick in Manhattan design circles. At the interview, I wore my only suit jacket, worn at the elbows, fingers smudged with graphite anyway. Eamon stared hard at my portfolio at the park proposal, the sketches of glass twisted with brick. He closed the folder, looked at me and said, "Everyone told me not to hire outsiders, let's see who's right." I left with a coffee-stained contract and the strangest sense of relief. Work was relentless. I traded fatigue for late-night adrenaline. I made friends, lost them, got hurt, healed. I designed lobbies, rooftops, even the ventilation grates on fancy condos. Each project stitched another square into an invisible flag I kept private. I never went home if I could help it. I missed Mom's funeral by a day. She'd slipped away quietly. Ava called to tell me. Her voice was raw. "Dad thinks you care more about buildings than people." I said nothing. There was no explanation she'd accept. Almost a decade after that hospital corridor argument, Ava called again. I was perched on the edge of a new site, helmet tipped back, watching the sunrise over the East River. My hands were bigger, voice rougher, but something inside still heard that long-ago ridicule echo. She sounded different, humbled, maybe tired. "Sam, it's Dad isn't well. I know it's been a while." I stared at the water, unsure whether to answer. "Is he?" "He's okay, but listen, there's a ceremony, that new community center. They say you're the architect, Sam, your name is on their poster." It was true, my project, a low geometric bloom of glass and wood nestled in Red Hook, built where a vacant lot used to gather syringes and cans, had drawn attention. The community was hosting an unveiling. "They want the family to come," she said quietly. I hung up without promising, unable to feel anything but a dull ache. Yet that night in the hum of my apartment, I found myself thumbing through old family photos. Ava with her plastic hairbrush, Dad's arm around Mom over a bowl of pasta on a patched vinyl tablecloth, my own young face grinning shyly, holding a set of colored pencils like they were stolen jewels. I wiped my eyes and booked the earliest trains. The center was nothing like the hospitals or bodegas of my childhood, where once weeds tangled along fences, sunlight now spilled across a geometric entrance, over louvered glass, hunted wood slats, and a sprawling mural drawn by local kids. Inside, the ceiling soared, light poured from clerestory windows spilling onto the soft cork floors, dancing across benches curved like river stones. I arrived early, nerves raw. Ava met me by the gate. She scanned my face, older now, eyes softening at the edges. "You look tired." She touched my cheek with the lightness of memory. "Busy, that's all." She squeezed my hand. Our father came slower, hunched and thin. His grey hair was combed flat, his coat too big for his shoulders. For a moment his eyes held challenge, but it melted in the light of the new place. He nodded, then released Ava's arm, cleaving a path through eager neighbors and curious onlookers. A crowd gathered, old men with canes, mothers pushing strollers, a knot of kids tugging at a kite. City officials ambled in polished shoes, clutching scripts. Someone handed me a microphone. I swallowed, hearing my voice projected not just over speakers but into places where my doubt once lived. I grew up on streets like these, where hope sometimes felt as thin as a lottery ticket. I was told more than once that dreams were for people with richer blood, thicker wallets. My hand trembled. But here's proof that hope is built brick by brick, by believing we don't have to settle for less. I motioned to the benches, the trees we'd planted, the sunlight breaking through. From the back, I spotted classmates who'd laughed, neighbors who'd scoffed, even Uncle Marty, the one who joked about castles in clouds. Their expressions softened, the laughter gone, replaced with something like awe. I caught my father's gaze, proud but trapped in bewilderment. A city councilwoman cleared her throat, waving to the gathered crowd. We have with us today the architect behind this transformation, the person who reimagined this block, who brought hope and home together. Sam Maxwell, who grew up not a block from here. Applause thundered, loud, insistent, impossible to ignore. My hands tingled. As I led a tour, Ava lingered at the entrance, Dad trailing behind. At every corner, someone stopped to ask a question or share their story, how their children would play safe here, how the light warmed their faces, how the echoes of the past felt gentler. Inside the main hall, sunlight spilled across glass etchings, for those who remember where they came from and those who will. I showed them the reading nooks, the quiet corners I'd designed for kids who needed solace, not unlike my younger self. My heart battered my ribs. Ava knelt to trace her fingers across the wall, feeling the lines I'd drawn. From behind, Uncle Marty barked a laugh. Didn't know your silly sketches would do all this, kid. I turned. Neither did I admitted. The crowd thinned. Finally, Dad stood alone, facing a window where children traced spirals in condensation. He spoke, voice rough. You built something real, not just for you, but for all of them. For all of us. I felt years of bitterness loosen, dissolving under the high summer light. I wish Mom could have seen it, I whispered. He nodded. She always said you saw what we couldn't. Outside, the spring air hinted at rains. Ava squeezed my shoulder. We sat together on a bench I'd designed, watching new laughter ring through the halls, ring off walls that I'd once only dared to imagine. I stayed that night for the first time in years, sleeping on a borrowed mattress in my father's quiet apartment. Ava made pasta, too much garlic, just the way we'd always liked. Dad, for once, asked about my life, about the city, about the projects still unrealized. We laughed, truly laughed, for the first time since that night in the hospital corridor all those years earlier. Later, when I stepped onto the fire escape, Brooklyn's skyline caught the moonlight in glass and concrete. I felt rage and shame, defiance and joy twined together like steel beams. I was home, but on my own terms, finally seen. Deep in the night, my father's voice filtered through the kitchen window. Sam, you coming in? I looked one more time at the horizon, the city glowing with possibility. I smiled, and I went inside.